Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. Russian President Vladimir Putin has rejected a suggestion reportedly being considered by US President-elect Donald Trump that would delay Ukraine's NATO membership for at least a decade as a condition for ending the war in Ukraine. Putin said on December 26th it does not matter if Ukraine joins NATO today, tomorrow, or in 10 years. In parallel, public support for aiding Ukraine until victory has weakened across Western Europe, with many citizens favouring negotiations with Russia to end the conflict, a study has found. Where does this leave Ukraine and the prospect of a just peace in that country? Well, to discuss this, I'm joined by Rostyslav Khotin, Senior Editor, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, and a regular contributor. Mr. Khotin, welcome back to TVP World. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Initial reactions to Putin's comment.
The thing is that, yes, he did indeed said that it doesn't matter for Russia whether Ukraine will join very quickly or in 10 years. He said that from geostrategic point of view, in his words, it doesn't matter. The time flies in geopolitical terms very fast, very quickly. He wants a guarantee that Ukraine will never be NATO member, will never join the North Atlantic Alliance. We'll see. Ukraine, of course, indeed wants to join NATO, and it's point number one in so-called Zelensky's victory plan, invitation to NATO. We'll see. Ukraine sees the best guarantee of its security NATO membership, and the NATO Secretary General, the new NATO Secretary General, Mark Rutte, once said recently that Ukraine will become the 33rd or 34th NATO member. For Putin, it's unacceptable. One of the reasons he invaded Ukraine, in his words, was to prevent Ukraine from joining NATO. Ukraine is ready to negotiate, but Ukraine wants clear guarantee, lasting peace, stable peace, just peace, full withdrawal of Russian forces. You know, the security guarantees from Western countries, from Western partners of Ukraine, that Russia will not invade before giving some kind of assurances about non-joining NATO within a couple of years or 10 years. We'll see. Yes, indeed, the 10 years term was mentioned before by Trump's team that Ukraine should not join NATO. I even heard from people close to Trump that there was an idea for not to invite Ukraine to join NATO within 20 years. We'll see.
Well, yes, but the thing is, Mr. Khotin, I mean, you know, Putin is saying 10 years from now. I mean, 10 years from now, he's not going to be around anyway, or it's highly unlikely. Is this not simply a ploy by Putin? Take NATO off the table, and there can be no constructive negotiation. I mean, could this be an indication that Putin does not want peace at all?
Yes, of course. He doesn't want real negotiation. He wants to regain strength. He wants to regroup. He wants to further continue this war. So far, there are different peace initiatives, but no one has been accepted clearly by the Kremlin, by Putin. He just recently, the Slovak Prime Minister was in Moscow and offered Slovakia as a place for negotiation between Ukraine and Russia. We'll see. Putin is not honest when he talks about peace, the ending of the war. We'll see. So far, there are competing initiatives, Slovak initiative, Hungarian initiative, Chinese, Brazilian initiative, different initiatives for ending this war. But the main thing is the main initiative lies within Trump, of the president-elect of the United States, Donald Trump, who his team sees the end of the war.
I mean, you raise a number of very interesting issues. Let's start with Slovakia. Why do you think Fico went to meet Putin? And also, why do you think Putin is so happy for Slovakia to host any peace negotiations?
First of all, Robert Fico wants to raise the international profile of his country, of Slovakia, of his government. He also, let's not forget, his friend, but he is also competitor of Viktor Orban, Prime Minister of Hungary. They both compete, to become a peacemaker in Ukraine, to end this war and to provide kind of mediation efforts to end the war. But Fico is jealous that Orban is a friend of Trump, that Orban was in Moscow meeting Putin, that Orban was in Beijing meeting Xi Jinping, and so on and so forth. So Slovakia competes with Hungary in a paradoxical way.
Understood.
Also, let's not forget that Putin said that Slovakia is acceptable as a place for negotiations because Slovakia, in his words, is neutral. I mean, he means like that Fico is pro-Russian and meanwhile heading the government of the country, which is NATO and the EU member.
Right. So Fico is supposedly neutral, and there's a game of one-upmanship going on with Viktor Orban of Hungary. Well, that's people can make of it what they want. But I also want to talk about public opinion. I mean, European public opinion is kind of dwindling in terms of supporting the Ukraine war for as long as it takes, a phrase we often hear at EU conferences. Is there a risk that President Zelensky is going to be influenced by that drop in public opinion in Europe to accept a deal that he wouldn't really like but has no choice on?
Of course, Ukraine is exhausted, and the population in Western Europe, in Europe general, is also exhausted by the war. But Ukrainians are most exhausted, of course, in almost 3 years of this war. And third difficult, hard winter is now, with problems with electricity, problems with heat, and so on and so forth in Ukraine. People are tired, of course, but it's a war of attrition. And Ukrainians, of course, understand that Western Europeans might be also tired of this war. That's why, this vision of Joe Biden's team, of Kamala Harris, like, we will support Ukraine as long as it takes, as long as needed, doesn't play anymore to Ukrainian ears very well, because for how long this war should last? It's already been more than 1,000 days. It's already been almost 3 years. Ukrainians are exhausted because the hybrid war in the Donbass started in 2014. It's already kind of already almost 11 years. Ukraine is involved in some kind of conflict or full-fledged war. So there is this tiredness, there is general exhaustion. But and Ukrainians do believe that 2025 could become a year of peace. And that's why the latest opinion poll in Ukraine showed that 45% of Ukrainians think that Donald Trump will be able to end this war next year, and 40% undecided. Just a minor percentage. They do not believe in Trump's ability to end this war.
So what's behind that? What's behind that opinion, Mr. Khotin?
Yeah, behind this is real hope in Ukraine that next year could be a year of peace, and that Trump will be able to bring this war to an end. The thing is that this war should end on fair terms for Ukraine, not just simple ceasefire with frozen conflict and Putin will regroup, rearm, and then attack again Ukraine, in 2 years or 3 years, and so on and so forth. But that this peace should be long-lasting, should be fair, should be just peace for Ukraine. That Ukraine should be able to deoccupy maybe not all territories, not maybe Crimea so far, maybe it's for the future, but at least the biggest chunk of the currently occupied 20% of Ukrainian territories should be freed of Russian troops, occupying troops, and Ukraine should get a fair deal.
Right.
Clear security guarantees.
Yeah, okay, so you mentioned fair deal, you mentioned land in Ukraine that's been occupied, and you mentioned security guarantees. Now, clearly, Putin is going to disagree with some or all of these. He'll probably say, well, get used to the fact that we control 20% of Ukrainian territory. Now, are Ukrainian people so tired that they would be prepared to accept, for example, another option that's been put on the table, which is a demilitarized zone in the occupied territories, which are then protected by an international military presence in exchange for peace? Do you think that might be an acceptable temporary, certainly, solution?
The idea of that current line of contact, the current front line, should become kind of demilitarized zone, demilitarized line, is not acceptable. Russia should leave the bigger chunk of occupied territories to Ukraine. That's the idea. Maybe Crimea so far is not reachable for Ukrainians. Maybe Donetsk and Luhansk, but the rest, the bigger part of Donbass, the parts of occupied parts of Zaporizhia region, of Kherson region, should be free of Russian occupying forces. That is the vision of Ukraine. Ukrainians are not ready for any peace or any territorial compromise or fixation of the current front line, which should become kind of demilitarized line or demilitarized zone. No. Ukrainians should get a fair deal, fairer deal than the Putin envisages for Ukraine now. So that's why it's important to keep pressure on Russia. And Russia is weak. It's in much weaker position than before the start of the war. Russia is like a coloss on clay legs. It's a falling country. And Russia is Putin is portraying himself as a strong leader of a strong country, but he is a weak leader of the weak country.
Right.
He's in a much weaker position than before.
Understood. Now, just in the last minute or so that we have left, now, according to reports, one of Trump's ideas that, Ukraine wouldn't join NATO for at least 10 years has been thrown out by Putin. That's how we started this conversation. Is there a chance then that Trump is going to say, well, Putin, you're being unreasonable here. If you're not even prepared to discuss NATO, then maybe we're just going to have to support Ukraine in achieving their goal of getting you out of Ukrainian land, and we will give them whatever they need to fight that. Do you think that's a possibility?
Yes, absolutely. That's the approach of Trump's team. They want honest negotiations from both sides. They want both sides to be like honest negotiators. And if Russia will maneuver, will be dishonest as a negotiating partner under the U.S. umbrella, then the Americans under Trump will provide Ukraine as much military aid as they want, will give any permission to strike whatever they want on Russian territory. There will be enormous financial support for Ukraine, and that's what Trump's team said. So their approach is, their concept, vision is like peace through strength. And that's why Ukrainians also hope that this Trump's approach, peace through strength, and tough negotiation with Russia will bring some results and hopefully lasting peace in the year 2025.
Well, we certainly look forward to a fair and just peace in 2025. Mr. Khotin, as always, thank you very much for taking the time to join us. Have a happy new year.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's all from us in this episode of World Talks. Goodbye.